Hi everyone and welcome to this episode of Problems Exposed and Resolved. I'm here with Bron Williams, who's fantastic in her expertise. So her area is coaching and specifically potential, and she's also got a couple of awesome things that she's achieved on top of that, which I'll let her explain to you now.
Okay, well, I have lived long enough to have done a few things in my life. I turned 60, oh gosh, nearly 2 years ago, holy dooly. And when I turned 60, I was actually really excited because I thought 60, that's a lot of years to have lived, and I still had heaps of energy and things I wanted to achieve. So yeah, I'm really actually quite excited about this point in my life. A quick summation, I trained as an educator and spent many years in the education profession. I then retrained in my mid-50s and worked with the Salvation Army as a Salvation Army officer. So I was a minister of religion, looked after a parish and a church and married people and did funerals and baptised babies and all of those sorts of things. And then in the course of working with the Salvos, I went to Nauru as part of their team to work with asylum seekers from 2012 to 2014, total of about 15 months over that time.
That would have been amazing.
It was amazing. It was the most wonderful thing that I've done, but also the most traumatic thing that I've done. And as I've spoken to other people who were involved in that time, that's exactly how they describe it as well, because it was like real confronting, frontline stuff, but because of the political implications and the fact that it was, there were people in Australia who were very much for refugees and people who are against refugees. You felt yourself you're in the middle of a bit of a tug of war, and it, it still remains that way. So yeah, so it was both wonderful and terrible at the same time.
Yeah, I imagine you would have learnt a lot, and yeah, it would have been pretty tough. It's definitely a bit of a battle, isn't it?
It is a bit of a battle, and the thing that it was actually a turning point for me. I'll backtrack a little bit to around, I think, July or August 2012. I went and did some training in New Zealand with the Salvation Army, and when I finished, I spent a few days in Auckland. I had always wanted to do a bungee jump, and so I did off Auckland Bridge, which was wonderful, but it was like a sign of things to come, that I was going to jump off what was safe and secure and go flying into something unknown. And it was only probably 4 or 5 months later that I first went to Nauru, and that was a jumping off place for me, because in Nauru I probably, as is often the case, I learned more about myself than I think I gave out. And the two things that I learned were that underneath my sort of fairly tolerant and accepting exterior lay some fear and a latent racism. And I was quite appalled to discover that in myself. And the other thing I learned was by looking at how the expatriates, and myself included, were dealing with the Nauruan staff that worked with us. There was this real sense of superiority that, of course, we knew best because we were from a first world country. We were, as a university educated, all of that, what do people on a little island know? And those two things were really confronting, and they were my backstories. And that's when I first really started to understand the power of our backstories, and that they can keep us stuck, or they can become the place in which we can set sail. And out of that experience, for me, I have come to value diversity. I see difference as an asset, not something to be afraid of.
That's amazing. Yeah, and that would be a massive step with helping your clients as well. Like that experience, I'm sure you definitely would use and help them. Yeah.
Yes, because I think as a coach, you can't help someone go places that you haven't already been yourself in some form or other. you and I were discussing earlier about how you can be trained as a coach. You can be trained with in a variety of techniques and methodologies, but unless you have an innate capacity to be empathic and empathetic and willing to go the journey with people, no amount of methodology is actually going to help you be a good coach. And so I think doing the journey yourself, and for me it's continuing to do the journey. I am continuing to find out things about myself to understand myself better. And as I do that, then I can help other people take that journey for themselves.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's what I love about your story as well, because there are a lot of coaches out there that just try and learn a program. Unfortunately, I think part of that's what's given the industry a mixed reputation. And then there's people like yourself that just get out there and just do it and take the action. So when they're telling people to do things, it's authentic and it's coming from a place they can relate to. It's definitely a distinction you can notice pretty easily.
Yeah, I certainly have sat in seminars and one-day workshops and heard people speak who I feel have just spouted the right knowledge, but I didn't feel a connection with them. And I think that's really important, that ability to be able to relate to people. And connection is one of my 3 core values. The other 2 are creativity and courage. And I like to connect with people. I like to be able to say to people, I've been here. I will never say to somebody, I know exactly what you're feeling, because that's an untruth. I might be able to relate some of my experiences to whatever someone else is doing. But that, it's an ability to relate, to connect, that I think is vital if you are going to help other people take steps on their own journey. Yeah,
that's a really important point, because one of the things that you do see, and when people say, oh, I know what you mean, it's sort of, to me, it's like they're still thinking in their own head. They're not thinking from your place. And it instantly, for me, is like a blocker. I'm sure there's other people that probably find that too. So for you, it's an awesome thing that you do, because it makes a big difference, I think, when dealing with clients and when looking for a coach. Like for me, that would be a massive bonus that I would look for. Definitely.
Yeah. I see myself, probably also because of my age, as a bit like the old wise women in the village, the wise woman in the village who had the experience, who've had the life, but who actually doesn't feel very old on the inside, because, we don't really change all that much on the inside. It's just the outside, time and gravity take their toll.
That's true. So what would you say are the biggest problems that the clients you deal with? Is there a few key problems that they usually face?
Most of the time, people come to me when they are feeling some level of frustration with their life. I did a presentation in Melbourne last year, and I didn't know this woman was going to turn up there. She was somebody I had worked with previously in an employed situation. And she just came up and said, oh, Bron, she said, I just have to do something. She was almost in tears, because she had started a new job hoping that in that job she would, her skills and her potential and her talents would be tapped into. And I think it was great for a little while, but then it all just got tamped down again, and she was back to that place of feeling frustrated. And so we're working together to tap into her potential, her latent potential, and then to be able to find ways to use that. I had a discovery session just the other day with a young man. I usually do work mostly with women, because I find women do this self-reflective journey more naturally. Doesn't mean I don't work with men, because some men can do this quite well and they're not threatened by the whole, oh gosh, I've got to look at myself thing. And this man was actually wanting to step into stand-up comedy out of a corporate space. And so that was just you know, I don't know whether he will take up some coaching with me or not, but just even to hear him be able to express for the first time out loud that, you know, his corporate role pays the mortgage and gives a security for himself and his family, but there's this creative side of him that is really frustrated. And so, you know, if we work together, I would encourage him to tap into that, find ways of expressing it, of utilising it. It could be really exciting. So sometimes it's huge things where people are incredibly frustrated. Others, it's sort of less so. But it's always at that point, I need something to change, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. So, and normally, so if they're feeling frustrated, the best thing would be to get in touch with you, obviously. And what are the best ways that people can get in touch with you?
Okay. If my email address is probably the best place to start. So that's Bron, B-R-O-N, at backstory.com.au. And backstory is back and story together, just as one word, so all lowercase. So that's Bron at backstory.com.au. If you want to head over to my website, that is https://backstory.com.au. Don't put www because it won't take you there.
Awesome. That sounds good. Thank you so much. It's amazing hearing what you've done. You have certainly got a lot of courage, and I love the work you do. It's so important to have people like you.
Thank you.
Because these days, I think the world's so busy and everything's so full on that a lot of people, unfortunately, don't take the time for themselves, and then they get to that point where they're just frustrated and almost burnt out. Yeah,
because we are our best resource.
Yeah.
And we take ourselves wherever we go, into relationships, into workplace, into business. And so if we're investing time and money in our physical health, great. In our fitness, great. In our upskilling at work, that's great. But if we're not investing in who we are as people, then we're actually missing, I think, one of the most key investments that we can ever make.
Yeah, that's true. You see it in the marketing world a lot, actually. A lot of businesses that I start with, in the beginning, I'll say to them, what's your purpose? And they'll describe what their business does. But a lot of them don't take it back to that core why they're actually there, which is critical to make everything in alignment.
It is. Yeah, that why question is the most important question in life and in business. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, it really is. To make the biggest impact, it definitely is.
Yes. And keep you on track as a human being and growing and getting ahead and moving and all those good things.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
That's a pleasure, Alana. Thank you.
Okay.